What's up?
Yeah.
Joe, Jordan, Guy Malone together again for the first time. Not
Oh,
our
yeah.
first time together, by the way, guys. Thank you, Nick in the background. Sid's not around today, but for Bitcoin Live, we are decentralized. We are doing a program now called financemeetsfaith.com. I'm Guy Malone in Roswell, New Mexico. Joe Jordan and I have been ministry partners, friends since around 1999 or 2000. I arrived here around then as a so called missionary with a point of view to bring to Roswell, New Mexico, the alien capital of the world, the home of the world famous UFO crash. The Roswell Daily Record newspaper printed the headline heard around the world. And I wound up here as a missionary. Long story short, just tell folks, I don't think this is actually from other planets. It's demonic, and there's something else that happened behind the UFO phenomena. I was a lone nut until a guy named Joe Jordan, long haired hippie kind of fella, hair down to here, but going the other way, down his back, reached out to me in the 90s. I thought he was kind of weird. I didn't exactly reply back either. But we have been friends doing all kinds of things together. Current status of a program that would actually be labeled Finance Meets Faith. I've been in Roswell almost, over 25 years, since 1999, minus 5 years. I was gone, but upon a return, I was, God blessed, to carve out a little niche, me doing part-time work for our newspaper, Roswell Daily Record, which I mentioned, writing newspaper columns about a new interest of mine was Bitcoin. So I got to carve out financial pages as opinionated columns for a newspaper here in town, Roswell. And when the town got tired of hearing about all those columns, something fun happened, and I started writing about faith, the Bible, supernatural. Uh, One of my recent columns included this fella, Joe Jordan. We have worked together in conferences, him presenting another from a different angle than my experiences and my work, which we won't even get into today, I bet. Joe has come to a similar conclusion that from a secular research perspective, working with Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, early as a state section director, where he was in Brevard County, Florida. Later on, when you went overseas to South Korea for nearly a decade, so became Mutual UFO Network's top guy in Korea. Why don't I let
11
you
years.
finish your intro, Joe? You can get into your story, how you learned to view this so-called alien abduction phenomena differently than most people have, and anything you want to say about us working together. And folks, so we don't forget, Joe and I have an event coming up where we do speak occasionally in Roswell, almost annually. In the past, his website is ce4research.com as well as stopalienabduction.com. I believe they go to the same place. I
Yep.
have an older site, Reborn Again, alienstranger.com. And together, us presenting this July is alienresistance.com. So that's enough setup. Joe, tell your story and what you're going to bring to Roswell this summer.
Yeah. Thanks, Guy. And thanks for having me on your show. Ah, where do we start? Well, you started it way back, 99. Um, Actually, I started a little bit before that. I first got interested in the UFO phenomenon by accident. Um, you know the story. It all happened on a vacation trip to Alaska to visit my brother. I had my son with me and my mom with me, and we were going up to spend some time. Hadn't seen my brother in a few years. He was in the Air Force, stationed at Elmendorf and Air Force Base at Anchorage. And as we got ready to fly, we're flying out of Orlando, headed to Anchorage, Alaska. That's like a 10.5 hour flight uh, total, with one plane change we had. And I figured I'd better get something to read for the plane. It's going to be a long flight. Back then, this was 92. We didn't have all the technology for using phones and iPads and all that stuff on an airplane like we do now. So you had to have something to read to pass the time or take up knitting. I think you do a little bit of that, Guy.
Karen Dolan does a lot of it.
Yeah,
That's how I met her.
yeah, and
Friend from ufology back in decades ago, guys.
yep. And I figured I'd take up the book idea. So I went to a kiosk at the airport there, looking around, couldn't find a magazine that interested me. Went over to the paperback section, figured I'd look for something sci-fi that would hold my interest. I love sci-fi. I grew up reading sci-fi. My dad was a career Army soldier, and we traveled around Europe most of my growing up years. I spent 8 years overseas before I ever got to high school, and we didn't have TV to watch like regular American kids back then because TV in foreign countries was in a language you didn't understand. So kind of worthless watching TV shows you can't understand. So we used to get into books and comic books and stuff to pass the time. Kids would use that, and we actually played outside a lot, which was nice. But sci-fi was my getaway. Sci-fi was my escape, and I say escape because fiction books are just that. Fiction books, movies, things like that are escapism for us. As we go through our daily woes and work and everything else, and it bogs us down. A lot of people like to do that escape time and pick up a book or watch a movie and get into something that it's fictional usually, because fictional is best for escape because you can actually go to be someplace else in the universe, especially with sci-fi, on another world with other beings or traveling through space just for that short time that you're reading it and then come back to reality. Well, I looked around at the books and couldn't find anything that was catching my interest and kept looking and finally come across one book that to me looked like it'd be a great science fiction book. I hadn't seen it before. So I picked it up and gave it a look-see and turned it over, looked at the back side of it, and I was, interested in what it had to say about it. So looking at the back of it, it didn't read like a science fiction book, but everything about the front did. And that puzzled me. It wasn't that this book was about UFOs that caught my attention. The book itself is the UFO crash at Roswell. What caught my interest was the synopsis on the book, which was saying it was a scientific investigation and research into an event that happened in some little dusty town in Roswell, New Mexico, back in 1947. And I thought, nah, that's sci-fi. Aliens are sci-fi. I knew that. I grew up knowing aliens were sci-fi, not a reality. So that's what puzzled me about the book. That's why I bought the book, because it was that idea of taking that solid black line that separates fantasy from reality and blurring it. And that's what this book was doing. And that's what got my attention. So I bought the book. I read the book. Now I'm introduced to the UFO phenomenon. Now I got 1,000 questions, which I never had before because I didn't give a darn about UFOs because I knew it was sci-fi.
Yeah.
So I had to go find answers. During that time, looking for answers, I came across a couple in Orlando at the time that had just opened up a little business, little UFO museum, walkthrough museum. And
as in Roswell.
Yeah, as in Roswell.
International UFO Museum Research Center.
Yep. And this gentleman found a place on International Drive, location, and opened up his little walkthrough shop. And I decided to make a trip over. I figured he'd have answers to my questions. Come to find out, he was actually state section director for Orange County for the Mutual UFO Network. So yeah, he had lots of answers for me. Not ones that I was looking for, but answers that actually caused more questions to come up. Great time talking with him and great little bit of information. As I spent time working with him and learning more about the UFO phenomenon, he introduced me to the Mutual UFO Network. He said, with your interest, you might be interested in becoming more involved with this organization. And it's a grassroots organization. It's been around since 1969. It was founded by Walt Andrus, who used to be with APRO, I think it was. And they're in existence even today. I've been with them for 32 years now. I'm a lifetime member. The idea for the Mutual UFO Network is it's a grassroots, non-for-profit research organization that the average American or even average anybody from other countries even can join and be a volunteer and help look for answers to what this phenomenon is about. Their motto is, how does it go? I'm trying to remember, just lost it.
Senior moment, huh?
Yeah, senior moment.
Just the facts, ma'am?
Investigations of UFOs for the benefit of humanity.
Scientific investigation of?
Scientific investigation for the benefit of humanity. So it took me years to get an answer to what that benefit would be, but I finally narrowed down and had a chance to talk one-on-one with one of the international directors. He was actually there in Roswell. I talked to him when he was visiting. One year we were there. And I asked that question in a talk that he was doing at the end of the talk. I raised my hand, asked the question. So what is the benefit that we're looking for? And it was a simple answer. We want the technology. So they see something that appears to be high technology in this phenomenon of UFOs and UAPs, and that's what they want. They figure there's a lot of benefits for America, a lot of benefits for defense, a lot of benefits for the average public person, especially with maybe free energy. That is a possibility that they could come across, looking at this scientifically. So that's what MUFON is about. I ended up joining MUFON, and as I went through the motions becoming a MUFON member and getting set up, the gentleman I'd been working with out of Orlando, he said, you're from Brevard County, right? Over on the coast. And I said, yeah, over by the Kennedy Space Center. He said, with your interest, maybe you might want to start a chapter of your own over in Brevard County. There is no chapter there for MUFON. And I thought, that sounds cool. He said, yeah, you can train up, field investigators for your own group and do basically what we do here in Orange County and what MUFON does all over the country and in other countries. So I went through the steps, became a field investigator for MUFON. He trained me up as a field investigator, and then the next step was to approach the senior level and become a state section director for Brevard County, Florida.
What year was that you began training?
That was 93 and late 93, early 94. This is when I started as state section director. I actually became the member for MUFON in 92, end of 92.
Over 30 years researching UFO reports and then sidelined into abductions, correct?
Yeah. Not at first into abductions. Back then, MUFON wasn't set up to work with abductions, just dealing with UFOs at the time. There was a gentleman, John Carpenter, who was a psychologist working with abductees at that time for MUFON, and he was able to do hypnotic regressions on people that were experiencers to look at their story in depth a little more. But as far as a structure for going about doing the investigations with abductees, there wasn't anything at the time. There is now. There's the ERT, experiencer research team that MUFON has, and it's quite organized, and they actually have a process that they take you through. They have a survey that you answer questions. If you're an experiencer, then it takes you to the next part of the process. I'm not active with MUFON in the sense as on a formal basis right now. I'm just a member right now, but over time, like I said, I was 10 years as state section director. Eventually, I spent 11 years in South Korea after the space shuttle program went away, which I was working for out at the Kennedy Space Center at the time. I figured I better find a place that's got some employment, because this county didn't when the program died. They lost like 15,000 people lost their jobs here in Brevard County when the shuttle closed up. And I thought, well, I better get out of here before I lose my job and be unemployed too. Wasn't something I wanted to be. So I figured I'd go looking for work, and ended up doing contract work for the military over in South Korea. I'm a safety professional by trade. And that's what I was doing with it at Kennedy, and that's what I was also doing overseas. When I was overseas, I took the interest with MUFON with me, and MUFON appointed me the national director for South Korea. They had no structure set up with MUFON at the time in South Korea, so they let me set it up over there. So spent 11 years over there, and then finally had the opportunity to come back and work with the space program again, with new and upcoming Blue Origin with Jeff Bezos's company, which is who I work for now. But the abduction part of this came in about once I started holding meetings. Holding meetings was one of the requirements for a state section director. MUFON wanted us to hold monthly meetings for the public, to be able to share with them what we had come across and what we were working on. Also give them some insight about MUFON, and hopefully drive a little membership as we were, going through the process. Because remember, MUFON's all voluntary. They rely on donations and membership to be able to support what they're doing. So we started holding the monthly meetings in a public library here in Cocoa, Florida. The library was kind enough to give us a room, as long as we weren't charging people, as long as it was a free event. We had a room for free once a month, every month. All the video, audio visual aids, for whatever we needed to do presentations was there. And we posted a sign on the door that said UFO meeting, free to public. You ever think about what kind of people would show up if you stuck a sign on the door like
now
that?
that I've lived in Roswell, New Mexico, as long as I have, yeah. Let me break a second and just say, hey, thanks for the like and subscribe. I see a couple people typing in on the chat. I'm glancing down occasionally, trying to keep up with it, and with Joe as well. Just want to say thank you for subscribing. We look to be doing this, or me look to be doing this weekly. Right now, it's Sundays, 10 a.m. in Roswell time. That's church time for some folks. So if you're looking for an excuse to skip church, I'm your guy. Nick and Sid and Bitcoin Live Decentral, they do this from Europe, and they give their time on the weekends. So this is the time slot I get. I'm not intentionally being disruptive. It's just, once again, my karma runs over some people's dogma as I go. And we do, on behalf of Nick and Sid and the producers, the station, are hoping for a sponsor, actually. Anywhere between $75 or $150 a month keeps the lights on, keeps them able to provide the quality you're seeing here. I love it. I'm turnkey. I'm almost as old as this dad guy next to me. My beard's a couple years behind his, but I'll just say that, yeah, anything about sponsorship, just contact me, I guess, right now, guymalone@gmail.com. financemeetsfaith.com is the URL where I'll be promoting more and more about both Bitcoin, the topic of the YouTube program, generally speaking, as well as supernatural gifts of the Spirit, things the Bible says that they don't talk about so much anymore. Oh, dude, my friend Joe, people don't know our history, but Pastor Chris Ward started out with us back in the late 90s and 2000 when I had the shop here and the conferences that Joe came up with others. Chris was the 501c3 covering that church. And I'm just letting you know, bro, Joe, I'm becoming more and more like Chris as I grow up. Enoch, angels, somebody comes to me with some weird story and I'm like, that they're scared of, like they're a mutant labeling their powers for the first time. I'm like, hey, that's a spiritual gift. Here's where it is in the Bible. Give your life to Jesus, and he'll do that through you. It's weird. That's Joe's X. You're not on X very much, are you, Joe? Take over again.
No, I just haven't had too much time. I just haven't had enough time to deal with all of the different social medias. I do when I can.
Yeah, you kick it on Facebook, and Joe has jumped into AI art. He's producing all kinds of stuff now. But this is not his Facebook. This is CE4 Research, where you'll find somewhere, I'm in there somewhere. How many people have given a testimony on there of what you're about to reveal, Joe?
Over the time, I've worked with over 700 cases. Over the past 3 decades. But as far as the testimonies that I've actually got to be able to put up there, I've got about 250 that actually didn't mind sharing their testimonies publicly. My mission is basically to help these people. I'm lucky if I get a testimony to share. That's a plus. That's what I'm looking for, is a testimony to help the next person. Um, but I'm satisfied with just being able to help the person and help them move on with their life, which we're going to talk about how that
Testimony
happens
of what?
here.
Yeah. Let's back it up then. Let you jump back in and steer.
So going back to when we started our monthly meetings, we had good turnouts, maybe 25, 30 people would show up. Sometimes it'd get up to 50 to 60, 70 people.
You indicated they were, what kind of people show up at UFO meetings?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't use an adjective, but maybe that's where we cut off.
What kind of people show up for these type of meetings? I'm telling you, I didn't expect the type of people that I saw. And those type of people, oh, that's you people watching this show. That's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Same people. So good people. Okay. Just a little different. Maybe had troubled times over, their lifetime, which is what I started to find out. Different types of people would show up to this meeting. Some just for gimmick, just to see what it's about. A little curious maybe. But then there were many that had personal testimonies of UFO sightings, and they just wanted to share with somebody that wouldn't laugh at them. Of course, we didn't laugh at them. We wanted to hear those stories. That's what MUFON's about. But there was another group of people in the meeting that would kind of sit back, and they were quiet. And actually, there was more to that to them, just in appearance. These people, they looked really unhappy. Matter of fact, they were really unhappy. And once I started interacting with them and talking to them and getting to know them, their lives had been destroyed. Many of them had lost family member relationships, had lost friend relationships, had lost jobs, and been ridiculed by everybody that they know for things that they said had happened to them. And these were the people I found out called themselves either contactees or abduction experiencers, abductees. This was new to me. I only learned about UFOs and, doing sighting reports. So this avenue of abductions was a whole new game for me to look at. The research I had available to me, there was some at the time, not a lot. John Mack, Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, those were the main names back at the time.
Yeah.
That we had to choose from. Also, John Carpenter, I talked to. There were some publications and some videos out at the time that I could get myself educated about the abduction experience. Oh, not to mention Carla Turner. She was another one that was very vocal at the time, too. So I had a lot to fall back on for knowledge, an understanding about the abduction experience. Because the one thing that I really felt strong about was, how could I help these people? These people's lives had been destroyed by an experience that was related to this UFO phenomenon. These people were absolutely miserable, and I felt for them. I wanted to find out how I could help these people. How could I get answers for them and get them to, to be able to get their lives back. So my focus,
You're, at least in this telling, emphasizing people whose lives were broken and destroyed. And I as an experiencer of childhood visitations, I learned early on, you keep your mouth shut. Both a male friend and then later a girlfriend, I'll let it out in both, just because you want to share, you want to connect. That's why they come to your meetings. That's why I might have showed up. But I forgot what I was going to say. Something about connecting with abductees, just the desire to make it stop as well. That is the hopelessness of when I started doing my own research in the late 90s and saw Strieber's book on communion. He was showing that the phenomena would repeat itself in your adulthood. It would follow you. So as someone who may have come to your meetings, if geography had worked out differently, connect, tell your story with someone that won't laugh at you, as you said, and then also make it stop. How do I end this? Let's say I don't enjoy the trauma, so to speak. You know, Dr. Carla Turner, John Mack.
Oh yeah,
they got into the trauma and stuff.
Yeah, and they ended up actually having a term for the trauma. It's called PASS, post abduction syndrome. It's very similar to PTSD, and I could see the effects in a lot of the people. It looked like they were suffering from PTSD, but later, looking at the researchers, they had termed it PASS, PAS, post abduction syndrome. There were
Mm.
what it did was it validated to psychologists that an event had happened, a traumatic event, to be able to leave this kind of impression on the people. Um, Secular psychologists still weren't accepting of the idea that they had been abducted by aliens, but they could agree that yes, these people were not faking this, these people weren't lying. These people had had a traumatic experience that had actually done this to them. And
Mm.
that's something that they did agree on as far as the
Wow.
research goes.
Wow.
So as I'm focusing in more on the abductions, I realized listening to these different testimonials of the people that I had come into the meeting, and I knew there were more out there, because even the Roper polls that had been done over the years, over the decades, they even referred to people that had claimed that they'd had these experiences, numbered like 4% of the American population.
I've
Excuse
done
me, we're
numbers.
talking
Yeah.
millions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Millions of
we're
people.
talking millions of people that have been through this experience and can't talk about it and are living with it.
We're not all
The
talking
horror of
about it. We're not all
it.
telling you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, if someone says, "Well, I've never met a sir who thinks they've been abducted by," oh, yes, you have.
yeah,
Book
and
title
and
one.
just looking at those numbers, I've thought about those numbers before. So it's used to be one in how many? I used to know that number, but I don't
1 in
remember right
40.
off the top
That's
of
the
my head.
title. Preston
One in
Dennett.
40. So
That's the one I always quote.
I've been in different meetings and different gatherings of people, and if you bring the subject up, you'll find them. They're there. They just aren't willing to talk about it unless they feel comfortable with you to talk about it.
In the parking
But
lot afterwards, they come up to you.
yeah, I've had it done. I've had that happen at work. People pull me aside. They know what I'm into, and I go, "Can I talk to you?" And I say, "Sure, anytime." And next thing I know, they're spilling their guts about a horrible testimony, experience that they've had. So, and kind of this is where CE4 ended up heading. Um, in that beginning time there, and listening to these stories, it came to me just logically thinking. I thought, we've been chasing lights in the sky as UFO sighting investigators for a while. And just to tell you, being a UFO investigator doing sighting reports is like chasing your tail, like a dog chasing her tail. You never get anywhere. You don't really catch it. Uh, it's fun. It's exciting, but they've been doing this. MUFON's been doing it since '69. There's been other organizations, NICAP and APRO, and there's other ones out there too that have been doing the same thing, collecting these reports. They've got millions of sighting investigation reports, and still evidence that much. Big fat zero, even today. So as I'm listening to these stories and logically thinking, I'm thinking, you know, it's one thing to chase lights in the sky, but it's another thing to talk to a person who's had actual contact with the beings behind those lights in the sky. I said to my field investigators that I had trained up working with me, I said, guys, let me throw something by you. And I gave them that, what I just said, and I said, I think that if we're going to get to answers what this phenomenon is, it's going to be with the abduction experience, not with the UFO experience. I said, these people are front line. This is where the focus needs to be. And a lot of other researchers have felt the same way over the past decades, that the true answers are going to come through the abduction experience or the contact experience. So we decided to focus our research there. We decided to not stop doing MUFON work, sighting investigations, but on our own, we would get more into the abduction experience and try to get into an understanding of it, start interviewing these testimonials, and start documenting them and see if we can come up with something that maybe is being missed by the secular researchers that are out there. So we thought about it. Everybody agreed with me that this would be a way to focus and move forward. But I said, we can't do this as MUFON, because MUFON has no organizational setup to do this with. And we were going to have to do this on our own from scratch. So I said, why don't we just set up ourselves as a separate entity from MUFON and just let everybody know that we're going to post everything publicly for peer review that we do, that we find. And everybody agreed. So we come up with a name. The name was CE4 Research Group. The CE4, the main part of it, stands for Close Encounters, Fourth Kind. And that must mean there's other kinds. Yes, there are other kinds. These different kinds, close encounter kinds, were developed by Jack Valet and Dr. Hynek way back in the 70s. And there's close encounters of the first kind, second kind. Most of us are aware of the third kind from Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Mm-hmm. That's contact. Close encounters of the fourth kind represents the abduction experience. Close encounters of the fifth kind, which many people are hearing about now from Dr. Stephen Greer, that is contact mentally with these beings. And then there's close encounters, sixth kind, and I think there's even a seventh now. So we decided we'd use close encounters fourth kind, which was abductions, and that's what we've stuck with for 30 years now. So away we went. We put together CE4 Research Group. We started interviewing testimonials, and this whole time, just have to step back just for a second. When I first got into this, looking at this phenomenon, after I read, UFO crash at Roswell, I would classify myself as a agnostic humanist at that time. I grew up in the church with my parents, Protestants, Baptists mostly, attended church on the different military bases that we lived on or off the base, depending where the churches were at. I stayed with the church all the way to a senior in high school. And I had an experience in a church that caused me to leave the church and step out into the world and let it just devour me for the next, I don't know how many years. But that's how I entered into the church.
An experience that made you leave the church. You've never shared that little nugget around for.
I will. I'll share it with you. I was in the youth choir. I was everything. I never gave my life to Christ, though. That was the thing I hadn't done. I was following everything with the church, but I seen my friends go forward and give their life to Christ, and I just never had the call to do that. And but I was everything that I could be with the church, though. I was doing the religious part of it. We talked about that religious side, instead of being the spiritual side. But at the time I was a senior, my dad was stationed in, he was just getting ready to retire. And we were stationed in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. At that time, I was going to school there in Eatontown at Monmouth Regional. And attending church, I was in the youth group, I was in the youth choir, all of those things. And then at the same time, this is 1971. And at that time, there was a nasty war going on, my generation, which was the Vietnam War. And I had already been educated to that point, my senior year. The Pentagon Papers had already come out, and I was understanding that this war was not what it appeared to be, and I really wanted no part of it. My dad didn't like to hear that, but
he's military,
yeah, he was still career, and so I had to be careful about that. But we're in church, we're near a military base. Everybody on that base was probably headed to Vietnam because it was a signal corps school for the military, and they were learning My dad was an instructor there, and he was teaching these guys to use, field radios that were headed to the jungle. And I never forget the day I'm in church. It was early spring, and one of the young GIs coming from the base was attending church that morning, and he was pretty distraught. I could see it. Everybody could see it. He had gotten his orders for Vietnam. He was scared because this is far enough into where every night we were seeing the news reports of 350, American deaths. That's what we saw at dinner time every night, was the amount of deaths that were happening. Oh yeah, I mean the numbers were up there for American soldiers dying on a daily basis, and then they put that up on the TV, while you're eating dinner. So tough times back then, but this young soldier broke down, and the pastor started to work with him, and the pastor made a comment. He said, he reminded him that his service was for, to serve for God and country. And I had to think about that. God and country. He's going to war in a foreign country for God and country. And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? Country, I understand. But I can't believe God is sending this poor guy to war. That was something I said, no. I'm not putting up with that. That's not what, I do not believe that's what this God is about. And that bothered me really bad. And I left. And I kind of separated from the church at that time. I said, this is not a message that I feel is right. And I let the world eat me up and became pretty much an agnostic humanist up to the time that, I was first starting there in 92 with MUFON. As I was working with the abduction experiencers, things changed. My views started to change. I was overhearing actually, the experiencers talking to each other. And I was puzzled by what they were talking about. And finally, I had to ask them, I said, can I be part of this conversation? I'm, trying to capture everything I can about what you guys are going through. And they told me they were talking about going to different people for help. And I thought, there's people that are actually helping. And I knew that psychologists were available, some, for group study where they put you in a group with other experiencers and you boo-hoo on each other's shoulders, but it doesn't help. It just lets you know you're not alone. You're not going through it alone.
That is helpful.
I guess, but it doesn't, to me, I couldn't, if I was in that position, I wouldn't be helped by it, because it's still happening to these people. They want it to stop. And as I was listening to them, the people they were talking about were an area that I was unfamiliar with. And what they were talking about was the New Age metaphysical community. They had come up with all sorts of ideas, snake oil sales, to try and help these people. And nothing was working, but they were definitely taking these people's money. These people were desperate. They would try anything. They were being convinced that they actually had alien implants inside of them. They were being tracked, and different people said that they had methods that they could neutralize it or make it not work. And it's like blah
I've seen
blah.
The implant wiggle though on surgery or on camera.
Yeah. Okay.
Not mine.
Sure
I don't think I do.
But
Whitley.
Well, that's a whole other topic we can talk about. But as I started listening to them and trying to understand what was this New Age metaphysical realm, I realized that obviously it's part of their experience. For some reason, it's attracted them to look there for help. And I needed to find out what this was even about. So as I started to explore the New Age metaphysical realm, I got sucked right into it, hook, line, and sinker myself. And I look back on it now, and I think the reason that I was sucked into it is because I didn't realize that I was missing something in my life, and something that I had before, and I just never put it together till much later. But I was missing that spirituality in myself. I had it there when I was in the church, but when I left the church, there's nothing. Your hope just goes away. I didn't have any hope in life, you know. But here, these people were offering a hope, and it was different than the church. They were offering a spirituality without accountability. That's what the New Age offers, and that is very seductive. You don't have to be accountable for what you do wrong, because there is no wrong. To them, evil is just your perspective of how you see things. But there is no evil. It's just experience. Everything's about life experience. What you experience in this life is important because you're meeting criteria as you progress to enlightenment. They say that we live many lives. They believe in, past lives and reincarnation. And if you don't get it right in this one, you'll get it right. You'll have a chance in the next one. And eventually you'll get everything right and you'll ascend. It's it's kind of crazy. But I spent about 4 years dabbling in. I was more than dabbling. I was a full-blown New Age practitioner. I was converting Christians to the New Age.
That's right.
Before long. There was a lot of friends that I knew that were believers in Jesus Christ. And I started selling them what I believed, and they ate it hook, line, and sinker. Why? Because they weren't grounded in the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
So I had it's given me two different perspectives to look at this phenomenon through: the eyes of an agnostic humanist, and then later through the eyes of a New Age practitioner. Most researchers,
old hippie fighting against the war machine. All right, that's the Joe I know.
Yep, and did that for a long time. Where was I headed? So as I spent time in this realm, we're still doing sighting investigations. We're still doing interviews with abductees and contactees. And then 1996 comes along. 1996 was a very busy year for our group here in Florida. We got involved with a rally at the Kennedy Space Center in November of that year. I got introduced about this rally. They wanted the guys at JPL contacted me, and we had a launch coming up in November of 96. That was a Mars Global Surveyor was the launch going up there. It was a satellite that was being sent up by NASA to orbit Mars and re-photograph the planet for the rovers that were coming in the future. Remember, the last Mars satellite we had go up there and take pictures was Viking in the mid-70s. So it'd been 20 years since we'd been to Mars with taking pictures. And now we have more advanced.
Face on Mars?
That's what this was about, the rally. But because the rally, the guys at JPL, they knew what the docket was for filming for this satellite. And these guys were, like me, had an interest in the UFO stuff. And they were all about the Viking pictures of the face on Mars. And they said, what a great opportunity. 20 years later, we can get better pictures of the face in the plain of Sidonia, about the monuments of Mars written by Richard Hoagland. Let's verify this stuff is what we see, from Viking. Get better pictures of it. Sidonia and the face on Mars were not on NASA's filming docket for that mission. So they decided, let's protest. Let's put up a rally in front of JPL before the launch and simultaneously in front of the Kennedy Space Center entrance. And that's when they reached out to me, because I was state section director here at Kennedy Space Center area. They reached out to me. They sold me on what they were going to do. And I thought, as my radical self, I thought, yeah, what's a good protest? Let's do it. So I got the group involved, and, we went through the whole thing. I asked them, though, I said, because they were in contact with Richard Hoagland also at the time. And I said, I need to educate my group here on what this is all about, because I wasn't even into this, stuff from Viking mission on the face on Mars and all that. I needed educated too. So I said, can you ask Richard Hoagland if we can share his United Nations talk that he did? And because that one's on video, and all I had to do was just play the video at the meeting. And they reached out to him, and he ended up contacting me, and he says, Richard reached out to me and he says, I'll do one better. How about you get me a place to talk, and I'll come down and I'll talk. And I thought,
back up and tell people who Richard Hoagland is, old man.
What's that?
Richard?
Richard Hoagland, he used to be one of the news correspondents that was out there at Kennedy for NASA.
Walter
he was there during
the moon landing.
Yeah. He was
science correspondent. Okay, big name.
Science correspondent, yeah. For years, he worked out. He worked for out there, covering the launches and all of that. So he was privy and knew people in the organization, and he had contacts still. So getting him here was going to be great. And he said, "You get me a place to talk, and I'll pay for it." And he says, "Make sure it'll hold a bunch of people, and I'm going to talk for free. And you advertise it, and we'll make this thing happen." And he says, "I can actually be there at the rally with you too." And I thought, oh, this is awesome. So I ended up getting a hold of the junior college we had here. It's now a state college, 4-year, but it was 2-year at the time. And they had a beautiful auditorium. So I reached out to them, and they said, "Yep, we'll rent it to you." So I ran it by him, and Richard said, "Grab it, let's do it." We had, when Richard came and talked, it was a Sunday evening, and he talked for free for 4.5 hours.
Ooh.
Nonstop, no breaks. That was a wealth of information. Yeah, it was standing room only. I mean, we packed it in there probably more than what we should have had for fire code, but these people, they ate it up. And so great job he did. We had the rally the next day. We were down there at the entrance to the Kennedy Space Center. We had NASA security down there watching us and talking with us and keeping an eye on us. It turned out pretty good. Richard was there, and the day of the launch got scrubbed because of weather. We ended up having to do it. Launch went the next day. We'd done the rally. We weren't going to do it again. But what we did find out from the day that we had the protest, and when Richard had an opportunity to be out there at the press site. So he's out there mingling at the press site. We're at the entrance for the rally, and he comes back after they canceled the launch. He comes back to where we were at, still at the rally, holding our signs up and talking to people. And he says, "We got it." And I said, "What?" He says, "They're adding Cydonia and the face on Mars to the docket." So
nice.
We did our job.
Changed history.
And we changed history. Yeah. So all of that being 90s. Reason yeah.
So Joe be like, "You say there's a protest going on? Cool, I'm in." And then he's like, "Okay, now let me watch a video about what we're protesting, by the way. Let me get caught up." Like I said,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the age and the amount of years, and sometimes the people we're talking about, when you say Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek talking to the UN about this phenomena in the 70s.
These are the pioneers.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite, Richard Hoagland. These aren't names people even really recognize. Already broke the ground. You said something about UFO Network just chasing their tails with the research. Is there anything new under the sun?
Well, that's what it feels like, once you get actually doing it. I mean, it's fun. It's a social life that you get to meet a lot of great people and hear a lot of great stories. But if you're actually looking for, you're not going to get them from sighting reports. We still haven't. I mean, there's millions of them been turned in, and we still don't have an answer. Just more
We're
questions.
here. I have a question. Our topic was how aliens, abductions, can be ceased. I'm not paying attention to the time as much as we might need to ask you. You have a topic about how alien abductions stop. What did you discover in the course of your research, Mutual UFO Network?
That's what we discovered is doing once we finished up with all that rally and everything in November. I was exhausted.
Famous first, I see. God had to get you famous first, so that.
Yeah, I was exhausted. We had cases working on. I'm working overtime at work. I got a girlfriend at the time. She's working with me in the abduction experiences, as helping do interviews. Our relationship, my girlfriend and I, is she was a Christian, professing Christian. I was Crystal Rowley New Ager. As long as we didn't talk about politics and religion, we were good. Until this one day after the rally, she pulls me aside. I think it was the weekend after the rally. I'm exhausted, and she says, I'm concerned about your safety. And I said, what do you mean? She says, some of these cases and things you're working on, they seem pretty dark and sinister in nature, and I think you need some serious protection. So I pulled out my gemstones, and I said, I got all sorts of protections. No. She says, I mean real protection. So she grabs the Bible and hands it to me. I said, no, we talked about that. That's not what we're going to get into. I don't think it has anything to do with what we're doing here. And she says, I believe it does. And she says, let me share it. So she shared it with me. And I said, you know what? Short little spiel on the gospel message. I had heard it growing up. Didn't accept it. Just liked it, but didn't accept it. That time she shared that short gospel spiel with me, my eyes were open, my ears plugs came out, and it's like, I want that protection. In 1996, second week in November, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. Now I'm looking again through a new perspective at this UFO phenomena. This is the perspective that answers started to come. One of the cases that we ended up going back and looking at, that I had filmed an interview before I became a Christian. We looked at this case, and I said, I don't remember this. My partner was with me, and he says, I don't either. And what we had found in this one particular case, where this gentleman, Bill Defendahl, come to the meetings. He was an experiencer, worked out at the Kennedy Space Center, even had experiences while he was working at the Kennedy Space Center. Fascinating stories. He's sharing with us on video that we had missed when we interviewed him 6 months prior. But now as a Christian, I'm able to hear it and see it and understand what he's saying. And now I realize why I didn't hear it and see it before. He shared with us a story where he was taken one evening, and as he was taken, he felt like he was instantly taken into an area like a gray fog, and it was different than his experiences before. Something had changed, and then instantly he feels like he was being levitated up on a pole in the air, like a pole had been shoved up his rectum. He was in severe pain and panic, and quickly thinking, he calls out in the name and authority of Jesus Christ, Jesus, Jesus, help me. And instantly it stopped, and he woke up in the bed. The only reason he called out to Jesus, because he himself was a new believer. He'd just gotten married. His wife was attending a little church, invited him to the church to go with her. He became a Christian. The experience changed with him. Once he became a Christian, it was no longer good experience. That's when this bad experience happened. And the one thing that they had told him as a new Christian, and he remembered it during the experience, was if you're ever in need, call out to Jesus. He'll be there to help you. And that's exactly what he did in this video. And I told my partner, I said, you know what? If this is real, this is huge for the UFO field, research field, because this goes against everything that they're saying. All the researchers that we had studied prior to getting into working with the abductions said that abductions couldn't be stopped.
Right.
And here we had one that said he had stopped it, and in a very unique manner. I reached out to those leading researchers, many of them, and I asked them, "Hey, can you help me with a story here, an experience?" They said, "Sure, share what you got." I'd share Bill's story. Immediately, they'd ask me, "Can we go off the record?" And I said, "Sure, we can go off the record. Just help me out here." Off the record means I can't tell you who said it, but I can tell you what they said. I shared the story, and they said, we too have found cases like that. And I said, "What? Wait a minute. All your research says that you say that you can't stop these experiences. You're telling me you've got cases that people have stopped them and similar to mine?" They said, "Yes. We found people who stopped these experiences by humming a Christian hymn, reciting scripture, praying, singing a Christian song, or calling out in the name and authority of Jesus Christ." And I said, "Then why haven't you shared this?" The answer I got from every one of them was, "We didn't know what to make of it." That's an honest answer. I would have walked away with that answer and said, "Okay, these guys haven't figured this out." But it's happening. But you know what? Their conscience must have got to them, because they had to give me a second answer. Like, they didn't think I accepted the first one. That second answer was, "We were afraid to go there because it might affect our credibility in the UFO research community." Excuse me, what's that called? That's called a cover-up. In the UFO community, for 30 some years, I've been hearing the word cover up, cover up, cover up. It's always in relation to the government covering up information. But ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, these leading researchers, talking heads that we see in this research community, they're covering up too. Everybody seems to have agendas. And for whatever reason, they only let information out that is complying with their agenda. I wasn't going to do that. I told these guys, "Thank you for sharing and letting me know that this case is valid and I have something to work with here. Also, thank you for letting me know that there's other cases out there, because I'm going to go find those cases. I'm going to make this my study, and I'm going to document these cases and make them public so people can see them." This is a piece of the puzzle that needs to come to the table. When you decide to put this puzzle together, all the pieces need to be there. This piece is one of those pieces. Just because you don't like what this piece is showing doesn't mean you can just leave it out of the picture. So they all said, "Please do, because we can't." And that's what we've been doing, Sharon. And that's what we've been doing for 30 some years now, is collecting these testimonies that people have been able to stop it in Jesus' name. And not only in stopping it in Jesus' name, but through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, you can stop it from happening again in your lifetime. It no longer becomes a life pattern. And that's something that nobody else has out there. This is the most important evidence in the whole UFO, UAP, abduction community, research community. This is the only evidence that shows the true nature behind what these entities are. And it's a repeatable event. Science is looking for a repeatable event. Nobody calls down craft one after the other. The thing is, this one is repeatable, because what we found when we first started documenting the testimonies on our website, that was our plan, just to document a volume of testimonies to show people that, hey, there is hope for you. And it's through this method. All of a sudden, we got that one email that changed the course of CE4 Research Group. And that was the one that came where the guy says, "I'm not a Christian. I see testimony. You help me." And I thought, oh my, this takes this to a whole new game. Now, this has gone from research to a mission. And I told him, I said, if you let us share with you what these people have done, I truly believe that you too can stop these experiences. He later became another testimony. That's repeatability. Not just can one person stop it, but by sharing that testimony, another person who's suffering from it can also learn how and can stop it also. That's repeatability. That's something. The two things, the volume of the evidence that we've collected and the repeatability, is the two most important things to show you what's actually happening here.
So for the scientific point of view, there is a thing that is actually called the scientific point of view out there that we don't talk about as much today because we're all into theoretical physics and hypothetical things. But you've said it, I probably learned the phrase from you decades ago. What you have documented is literally, it's measurable because you've got a couple hundred that have put their name on it. It's observable. Sure. They know the effects immediately, and it's repeatable because you said they can teach, share, and evangelize, so to speak. Sure. But the classic alien abduction scenario that we know about from Steven Spielberg and Hollywood and movies, one of my high horses, that people's beliefs about aliens and UFOs is shaped more by Steven Spielberg than it is by the Bible and or all of science combined. You are the only one who's come forth with something that's not a theory. It's not like, well, it's a really big place, so God must have. I like the way Gary Bates has said, you know, people hypothesize, well, here's how I would have done it, and I'm pretty sure God agrees with me, and therefore that's the way it must be. Something I forgot to finish asking a question on. You said that Bill Defendorf's story changed. It went as soon as he became a Christian. He went from having, I think you said, good experiences to where something bad was happening. What happens when people come to you? You mentioned bad experiences, people that want it stopped. What about the side that says they're good experiences? They're all starry-eyed and they like it and they want more of it.
That's all fine and dandy. That does happen with some people, but you challenge these entities, you'll see their bad side and you'll see them for what they really are. What we found out there was they talk about different types of beings, good ones, bad ones, the Greys, the reptilians,
Nordics
on the other side, the Nordics, the Pleiadians. What we're seeing there is good cop, bad cop. Like you see on a cop show. Excuse me, they're both cops. Okay, they're both from the same lie. What we found that all of this is a lie. This whole thing is like Carla Turner said, the masquerade of angels. That's exactly what this is. What we've been able to do is
messengers of deception.
Messengers of deception.
Both
what I bring is the evidence to show that both of those are the same.
Wonderful.
That they're actually, yep. So
Joe and I, you have given this testimony, this story publicly. How many times? In stage in Roswell, Joe comes up and has helped with conferences and stuff. How many times over, you said 3 decades, do you feel, if you're going to ballpark it, have you given this talk?
Oh, just count in these. Conferences or podcasts and everything? Just the conferences with you has been 14 now.
I think so.
Yeah, starting from the first time we showed up at the groundbreaking there in Roswell in 2000.
And you had spoken at the UFO Museum before I even moved there in earlier 90s. So over 30 years.
Yeah.
One thing.
So it's been many times.
Before we close up again, we're going to see. Oh, by the way, in case anybody's wondering, something that's gone unaddressed is last time Joe was here last year, almost a year ago. He left me behind some, I don't know what to call it, moose or whatever. I haven't shaved since then. I haven't cut my beard since then. But what was I'm out of it. I need to reorder. I'm using cheaper stuff.
I'll send you the link. I just ordered some myself here.
So. Awesome. What's it called?
I don't remember the name of it right off.
It's in the red label. All right. Not quite sponsored by, but anyway.
Yeah.
So we're going to be reuniting in a year of, I'm catching up with Joe. We're known in the past for alienresistance.org with Chris Ward and then many others, the conferences, Christian Symposium on Aliens we put together. In the last minutes, you and I are together again for the first time, maybe with a couple others, to redo a second Christian Symposium on aliens. However,
kind of my point was, you've given this talk a million times. The body of Christ has heard it. We've done a little bit to sort of shape the niche industry. So I'll just give it an open announcement that Joe and I will be available to the public on July 2nd. I have a second talk that we often do as a 1-2 punch on stage together a good dozen times, not only in Roswell. You've had me in Orlando. We've gone to other places or a little bit, but we're asking at alienresistance.com that if you are especially in a pastorate role and people are coming to you, your church, your flock, we're here to equip you, and we want to be available for questioning. We just want to ask that we have a few videos of work we've done in the past. Joe said he's done this talk 30 times. We've encountered questions that you might have, but we've encountered them a few years ago, and we've put guys smarter than he and I put together. A few PhD theologians come in and ask these questions. So how would you describe what's on your heart for what you want to see and what you believe God is calling us to do in July together? And I'm going to make a joke on good cop, bad cop. This year, I'm finally the bad guy. Woof, woof. Go, guy.
Yeah, we're going to do something different this year. I like the concept that we've put together for the symposium. It's going to be strictly question and answers because we've already done the talk so many times. We're making the talks available on the website in case you haven't seen them before you come. So you get all this information already ahead of time. And then when you get there, bring your questions, because this is a time to answer questions. We're right at a pivotal point in humanity where they're wanting to release this so-called disclosure. But if you don't have both sides of the coin, you're going to fall for this deception that they're pushing. You're going to fall for the agenda that they're pushing. So that's what we're here for, is they offer that other side of the coin. And that's a post or meme I put up last year that I made some shirts up. I actually wore them to Roswell last year. Make aliens sci-fi again. There's nothing wrong with aliens being sci-fi. It's entertainment. Remember, it's escapism.
You started off your whole talk, your whole story with that. You wanted to escape.
Exactly.
What we run into is people never come back, though, from the escape.
Yeah. Yeah. So this year, a little different. We're going to try something. We're going to do, instead of setting up a vendor table.
Oh, hi.
That's just me. You want to buy a clothes rack? $10?
Yeah.
It's right here. You want to look at it?
I'm at a location here in the world. Thank you, Fernie. Visit theplaza.com. I'm at Monterey Shopping Center here with some mom and pop vendors. I got a nice little thing. And one of the local guys that's been here for years is helping me out with a move, bringing me a clothes rack for sale.
There you go.
I'm on YouTube right now. I'll come back out and talk to you.
Okay.
Thanks, Fernie. He's got gaming and stuff like that in his booth.
Cool.
Yeah,
so instead of setting up a booth and actually sitting at a table like we've done before and wait for people to come by and try to talk with all the crowd.
Like we've done before.
Everybody's trying to move, see everything they can. We're going to try something a little different. We're going to play the costume game. And we're going to show up in force. Guy's going as the werewolf of Roswell with his antics that he's been doing recently and posting. I'm going as a nice agent, and nice like an ICE agent, but actually kind of same duties. Different crowd, though, he's getting rid of. Nice agent. NICE stands for Non-Human Intelligence Customs Enforcement. And that's the guy I'll be. And then we've got Gabe, who's coming there with us to help us out with our video work, and he's going to be dressed as an Men in Black. So the three of us, we're going to be, So we're going to be hitting.
Works out so well. NICE works out so well because I'm the nerd who's been like trying to work with churches and, proofreader, and all of a sudden I'm no more Mr. Nice Guy. We've got a mission.
Yeah.
How's it feel to be?
That's what we're going to take it to the streets, because in these events like this, photo ops that's the thing. You want to be able to be in the picture. And if you can be in the picture and people will stop and say, hey, what are you about? Can I take your picture? Absolutely. That's an opportunity to shove a flyer in their hand, and they walk away with all the information that we want to give them in
relationship
a quick
start.
Just like that. and then we can help him come down to Guy's shop where he's at now, and we'll have more. We'll have opportunity to spend time and talk with him. So that's our game. And actually, I'm trying in my costume out for ahead of time, doing a trial run. I will be in the second weekend in May, McMinnville UFO Festival in McMinnville, Oregon. And the friend of mine that has invited me up there, I was up there last year. I talked in a church up there, McMinnville Church, Awakened Church in McMinnville. And I'm going back up this year. We're hoping for a couple different talk gigs, one maybe with the university there. And we're going to do the costumes in the street. He's going to be the Men in Black. I'm going to be the nice agent. And we're going to give it its first run and see how it looks.
Awesome. So you will get some field experience doing the cosplay. Okay. I want to back up what you said, or affirm what you said about the photo ops and stuff like that. Guys that have known Joe and I's history, we've been worked with the UFO, literally both with the city of Roswell, like the inside men, organizing conferences, sort of choosing, just watching God's providence work, grace and favor over the years. Joe, he's such a steady Eddie, faithful guy. I'm a little manic. I come and go. But one thing I have learned from literally owning, thanks there, Nick, that is where I work out of. That is an AI reproduction of a big sign that is out front. If you're on West 2nd in Roswell, coming from the UFO Museum or downtown area, there's literally a restaurant called The Saucer on West 2nd that serves handcrafted, delicious pizza and some local beer and some different flavored beers. And I have a dead alien marking the sign there, the little purple thing you see in the image. So if you're coming to Roswell, heading west from downtown, turn left at the dead alien by The Saucer. And that's where you'll find my place. It's not even a shop. I don't have a quite bank account license set up. It's not even a ministry. I'm probably not qualified. Joe, I can give a few witnesses on that. But I'm just a weirdo with a hobby right now. Talking to Lawrence and others about maybe something bigger. But what I wanted to say was the costume thing was working with the UFO Festival year in and year out. I've been working for the city. You have too. You make these press packets. You tell them where to go and what to be. The nationwide press, CBS from Fox News, what do they always ask? They ask two questions. You can say, here's the most legitimate researcher with government documents. Here's an abductee who's been hypnotherapized and all this jazz. The story sticks. They don't care. They don't care, do they? What's the two questions they always ask the press from all over the world? When and where is the UFO Festival Parade? When and where is the alien costume contest? Because they are here to get the pictures first. And you nailed it. You get in the picture, then you might get a sentence in the headline as well, or in the paragraph as too. But it's Old Testament pattern is prophets are weird. The spectacle is to get the attention for the word that is coming. Joe and I are two old hippies who just don't care anymore. This could be a big old huzzah for a last huzzah for us. But alienresistance.com, anything else on your heart about the upcoming event or something we didn't get to cover today? I'm hoping to keep this in 9 minutes since people are knocking on the door and stuff.
Couple things. Just want to promote the books. First one, this was my first book, Piercing the Cosmic Veil. You shall not be afraid of the dark by night. And this one's got over 60 testimonies in it. Second book that I put out just this year, this one is Guy and I Together, The Red Flags of Ufology. I put together all the things that don't make sense. By looking at the things that don't make sense, you get a better understanding than the things they've been telling you, okay, that they think that they have. But all the things that don't make sense will actually give you a picture. Guy's in here with his entire story that he does, talk that he does about the Roswell crash. Very important book, this one here, okay? And then one more I just developed years ago, Dr. David Allen Lewis, UFO End Time Delusion. This was written in the early 90s, and he was my mentor in the beginning once I became a Christian. When he came across my work and I reached out to him, we ended up working very close. And I always wanted to put a sequel to this book. And I finally did that this year, and I just put out UAP End Time Delusion. Okay.
Right.
So I've got 3 books there that you guys can use to help understand what we're doing or share them with somebody else. And they're all available on Amazon. So
Great. If y'all happen to make it here in July, or you want to target, Joe and I are going to let people enjoy the UFO festival. We're targeting our event for Thursday before the Friday, Saturday, Sunday big things kick off, because we don't want to give you the choice of hanging out with us and learning, theology versus going to the UFO festival parade and getting the pictures that you really came for. So that'll be Thursday. Then we'll just be available throughout the time with an emphasis on alienresistance.com. We will be happy to handle your questions, but our request is do a little research on our videos that we have posted there before you start sending questions. Our desire with this is truly equipping the church. We are at a massive deception level right now when the President of the United States, both former and present, are hinting about alien disclosure is coming right now. The church is going to have a huge choice to make right now, is my contention. We have been proving, you've done it scientific method with testimonies. We've done this theologically. We brought PhD theologians in to make the case, is that what the world is calling aliens is truly a deception. They're deceptive spirits pretending to be aliens. 500 years ago, the same phenomena was fairies and elves, little people with big black eyes poking their magic wands in your privates and then making you embarrassed to tell your story to community. 500 years ago, though, if you had an incubus or a succubus or a fairy attack, you knew to go to the church. That's what Steven Spielberg has stolen from you right now. That answers, the Bible says that it is good for equipping every matter of doctrine. The Bible has the answers to this phenomenon. Jesus Christ is the answer. And we would love to equip you further, but you have to realize this is a huge, perhaps the, or one of, end-time deception that world governments are now actively participating in. And that's a big reason why Joe and I are like, you're going to have to choose this day who to serve. The truth is that alien deception is a lie. Any elected official that tells you otherwise is either lying or being lied to and repeating something that he, she were told. Agree or disagree before we...
And how much evidence do you need? Because that's what the testimonies are. That's the evidence. We have hundreds and hundreds of documented testimonials as evidence. These, every time I do a show like this and people get to hear for the first time what our work is that we've done, all of a sudden you look in the comments. Amazing how many testimonies will show up in the comments. You'll see people, I too have done that. I too stopped my experiences through Jesus Christ. Every single time I have done a podcast where they've had the comments in the bottom, you will find testimonies. So it's not just me, Crazy Joe, saying, hey, this is what I believe. No, look at the evidence itself. It's being presented, and not even all through me. These people are coming forward and giving their testimonies openly. I still, 32 years later, I'm still getting testimonials come to my email. They don't stop. As long as I continue to do this, the testimonies come in. So the question I've always asked when I do a talk, how many of these testimonies, how much of this evidence do you need to see to understand that what we're telling you is the truth? Because we're going to bring them to you.
Bravo. Thanks for joining me again today.
Thank you.
For years in, year out, a friend sticking closer than a brother. I'm not worthy, bro. Anything else before we head out?
Looking forward to spending time with you.
Right. We're going to be here in person causing trouble. Just two old hippies who don't care anymore. Last huzzah if it has to be. But we're going to bring the truth of the alien deception to Roswell, New Mexico. We just had the holiday Jewish festival, biblical holiday of Purim. The blood moon that marked something here. You don't have to play around with astrology. But the point is, Purim marks a holiday where the hangman's gallows wind up getting used against the enemies that wanted to destroy the people of God. And I believe that is what's happening in Roswell. I'm not doing anything special. I'm nobody special, but God himself has chosen now to reveal the truth of this phenomenon. And he's overthrowing some of the powers and principalities that have been using Roswell as their platform to deceive the world for decades. And now Roswell is going to be a beacon of truth on this alien phenomenon. Once again, God willing. And either we're going to make that happen or we're going to go down trying, bro. Love you. Much love.
Persistence.
Got to show up for work every day like you do, bro.
Exactly.
Nick, take us out, brother.